I read the book in 1995, the summer of '95. I think it came out in '88, and I read it and just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the language, the story, the characters, I don't know, everything about it. And I kind of knew I wanted to make the movie of the novel before I knew I wanted to make movies, and that's how much it meant to me.
I think he was 22 when he wrote it, and so you know, he's gone on to write other things and do other things. Michael Chabon has, but like, there's something about, you know, and it's the thing about Rawson too. There's something about that initial passion, the passion of youth, to write scenes where someone gets thrown off of a structure like this, or, you know, a lot of it's really filled with a kind of exuberance, which I really like.
When it came out, there was this sort of literary brouhaha over whether or not Michael Chabon was the next J.D. Salinger, which always happens, I guess, when a young American writer enters with such a bang.
When I read the book, I probably read it when I was like 16 or 17, maybe a little older, and I really liked it, but I thought, I don't think it jumped out at me as a movie.
Well, The Mysteries of Pittsburgh has had a long and rather checkered history in the attempt to bring it to the screen.
You know, people had tried in the past over the last, you know, I suppose 12 to 15 years to try to adapt it. Michael Chabon himself gave it the first go. He'd never written a screenplay before, and he didn't get much help, and by his own admission, he kind of ran straight into a tree writing the first one. So the novel had gotten this kind of rap of being unadaptable.
There were at least 3 attempts to bring this to the screen prior to this, maybe even 4. I can't remember, I've lost track. And it was a long period of time, and there were other directors and other scripts, and you know, a combination of the subject matter being a little dicey from Hollywood's point of view in terms of the gay love story element of it, and bad luck, and you know, it's just this magical alchemy that has to happen where everything has to come together. And I think what you really need, what's really key, is a totally passionate, devoted person pushing and pushing and pushing to get it to happen.
I've just been a big dopey fan of his since I read Mysteries. I read Mysteries of Pittsburgh, I read Wonder Boys, I read Cavalier and Clay, each one better than the last. And so I wrote him a fan letter, which essentially said, you know, hi, my name's Rawson. I love your writing. I love The Mysteries of Pittsburgh, and I'd like to take you out to breakfast and talk to you about it if you don't mind.
You need that stubbornness to make something like this come together, especially something that doesn't seem that obvious, or it seems a little unlikely from the big budget commercial point of view.
So I talked to Michael and I said, you know, here are the challenges. It's a first-person narrative, which is inherently difficult to adapt because it's, you know, it's a very solipsistic novel. It's Art Bechstein observing. It's Art Bechstein telling you the story. You know, the lead character in the novel doesn't take much action. His action is in fact the narration of the story. That is his act. And Art Bechstein is an interesting character in the novel because he's imbibed and imbued with Michael Chabon's powers of observation and powers of description, which are certainly you know, wonderful things to have. So I talked to Michael about the challenges, and I said, look, if you have any interest at all in hearing my sort of radical take on how to do it, say so, and I'll write a treatment.
This is, you know, the first time that everything just came together, and I really, you know, I think it's a tribute mostly to Rawson Thurber. He's been so focused from the very beginning, from the first time that we met. He just had me persuaded. He knew how to do it, and he could do it, and you know, it turned out that he was right.
A novel and a film, I mean, they're so different. It's not even apples and oranges, it's apples and hubcaps. I mean, they're totally different mediums, and they're both, you know, equally wonderful, but for very different reasons.
I think people who love movies understand that a good movie adaptation it's not like a literal transcription of a novel. It's an entirely new form that is telling the same story, but has to find a whole new way, a new language, and a new shape for that story.
And Rawson took the story in the book and he just turned it inside out. He made some really difficult choices to throw out characters, and Michael calls it he's solved the Gordian knot, or he unbound the Gordian knot. He he threw out conventional notions of what the movie story should be in a very, very brave way. It was one of the things that I really loved about the script.
A lot of times I would try to encourage him, as I have from the very beginning, to deviate from the book when he felt it was necessary. And even in our first meeting, I tried to tell him I didn't view the book as being some kind of sacred text.
It's a rare thing for someone of his talents, to be so open and giving with something like that, especially your first novel. Talk about your firstborn, and to let someone else take that firstborn and dress them up in funny clothes and shove them out into the world, into the spotlight. I mean, it takes an incredible amount of artistic courage to let somebody else do that. And I wish I could say I have I would be able to do that, but I'm glad Michael Chabon was.
I was not allowed to read Mysteries of Pittsburgh. Rawson, our director, asked me to specifically not read the book because he didn't want me to get distracted with a lot of the other storylines in the book, which aren't in this movie. This is really his own personal adaptation.
I read the book after I got the part, and Rawson hadn't told me not to read it, but I think he told everyone else. Anyway, but I loved it. And I loved how different our script was in a way to the book, but it was at its essence the same vibe and the same feeling and the same kind of thing. Although Jane in the book is a much smaller character, I felt, and I think Rawson felt, and even Michael Chabon felt, that she was sort of underdeveloped in the book. So it's nice that she's come alive more in the script. Nice for me, anyway.
It's certainly The Mysteries of Pittsburgh. It's not the kind of book, it's not like Harry Potter where every word of it gets parsed over by legions of devoted, rabid fans with websites and so on. I mean, people who remember the book, if they remember it fondly, I think when they watch the movie, it's going to fulfill all of their memories of what the book was like. And I think that's the main thing you're trying to do, is capture the spirit of the work.
I finished the script in a way that I was proud of, and gave it to my agent, and he read it and said, well, we should give this to Michael London right away. And I knew who Michael London was by reputation, and by the films he'd made.
Rawson was interested in a producer who made movies like the one he was trying to make, and probably saw some kinship between the movies I'd been working on and what he wanted this to be, which was kind of indie in spirit and hopefully well done and well cast, and he knew he needed a partner.
And we met, and I think before the menus were taken away from the breakfast, I was pretty sure that this is the right guy to team up with.
I read it and really fell in love with it in a way that's only happened to me a few times, where just like you read something from beginning to end and you know you want to be a part of it and you know you want to help get the director's vision on screen.
Yeah, Michael London has impeccable taste and is a stalwart sort of advocate of the artists and the art of filmmaking.
Who is the John Grisham of 1983?
Andrew Greeley.
What about Bakari? Yeah, he's kind of good.
I had kind of strangely been friends with Michael Chabon in the 1980s. When I first moved to Los Angeles and I was kind of getting started in film, I was part of a social world that Michael was part of, and his wife Yeled, and I had very, very, very fond feelings of him and fond memories of him.
We had Michael came to visit.
Yeah. He's like Mr. Spock.
He's been really wildly supportive, and it was interesting to kind of see through his eyes the experience of coming back to who he was, and watching these actors inhabiting these roles. I think he was very moved. He was quiet about it. He didn't talk a lot about it, but you could tell just sort of watching Peter Sarsgaard and watching John Foster and being in the book barn. I mean, he spent a lot of time working in crummy versions of the book barn before he became a writer. And you could definitely feel the years being erased in his head and him remembering. I don't think he wore an orange apron that was quite as humiliating as what we made John Foster wear. But he remembered being around those remaindered books and, the $1 section, and I think it was pretty moving for him.